Hillcrest Memorial Hospital towered above Lekora City like a monument of glass and ego. In its corridors, doctors hurried past like shadows chasing time. Nurses whispered about promotions, and the scent of perfume mingled with disinfectant. It was a place where the rich came to heal and the poor came to serve. Among them was Amara Nkem Okoye, a 29-year-old nurse whose gentleness seemed to offend the city's pace. She moved through the wards like dawn breaking through fog, quiet, deliberate, unshaken. While others chased recognition, she chased grace. "Amara, do you ever get tired of being perfect?" one nurse teased as they changed shifts. Amara smiled faintly. "Not perfect, just thankful," she said, adjusting her gloves. Her colleagues often mocked her for being too good, for refusing to gossip or take shortcuts. But Amara had learned early that her calm was her strength. Her late mother, a midwife who died while helping another woman give birth, had once told her, "Clean hands, clean heart, my daughter. Serve people as if you're tending to God Himself." Those words became her compass. As the golden sun melted into a Lekora evening, Amara made her final rounds, humming softly under her breath. The world outside was restless traffic, roaring, sirens wailing, yet she found peace in caring for those forgotten by wealth. A child with sickle cell smiled at her touch. An old woman whispered blessings as Amara adjusted her blanket. Then, as night descended, the skies turned strange. Wind howled through the palm trees outside the hospital. Thunder cracked like a divine warning. Rain fell hard, sheets of silver tearing through the air. Suddenly, an ambulance siren wailed louder than the storm. "Prepare the VIP suite," a voice shouted. "They're bringing someone from Marina View Towers." Amara rushed to help. Moments later, a convoy of black SUVs screeched to a halt outside. Security men in dark suits swarmed the corridor. Cameras flashed through the rain-soaked windows. On a stretcher lay a man in a torn white caftan, his chest smeared with blood. His hand dangled limply, a gold wristwatch catching the emergency lights. "That's Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko," someone whispered. "The oil magnate, the one who owns half the city." Doctors barked orders. Nurses scattered. But when the chaos cleared, Amara found herself alone beside the man. Everyone feared, yet no one truly saw. His breathing was shallow, his lips pale. The room smelled of iron and rain. Amara touched his wrist gently. "You're safe now," she whispered. "You're at Hillcrest." Outside, lightning cracked the sky open, but in that small room, peace bloomed for a fleeting second. She didn't see a billionaire. She saw a man broken, fragile and human, and without knowing it, she had just stepped into a story that would test her faith, shake her peace, and uncover a truth buried beneath decades of power and pride. The storm outside was only beginning. The rain outside Hillcrest Memorial Hospital refused to stop. It pounded the glass walls like grief demanding to be heard. Inside, the rhythm of machines echoed through the corridors, beeping monitors, rustling gloves, hurried footsteps. Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko lay pale and unconscious beneath crisp white sheets. Tubes ran from his body like threads tying him to life. The city's newspapers would call it a near-fatal attack, but in this quiet room, it was only a man and his breath. Amara stood beside him long after her shift had ended. Other nurses had retreated to the lounge, but she stayed wiping the sweat from his forehead, checking his pulse, whispering prayers under her breath. "Matron Gladys?" Bako appeared at the doorway, her arms folded. "You're still here?" she asked. I'll stay till his vitals stabilize, Amara replied softly. The matron sighed, half amused. You and that strange calm of yours? This city isn't kind to hearts like that. Amara smiled faintly. Then maybe it needs one. Midnight came. The storm softened to a drizzle. The world outside slept, but inside the VIP ward, time held its breath. Then a faint movement. His fingers twitched. His eyelids fluttered. Amara leaned closer. His cracked lips parted, and a dry whisper escaped. Water. She lifted the straw to his mouth. He drank weakly, then looked at her, eyes clouded, voice trembling. Who are you? Amara, she said gently. Your nurse. He studied her face as though it belonged to a dream. Don't let them near me, he whispered. Who? She asked, confused. My people. Before she could respond, he drifted back into sleep. Amara's heart tightened. She had tended to hundreds of patients, but never one who looked so afraid not of death, but of the living. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Light poured through the blinds, touching his face like forgiveness trying to find him. For a moment, Amara thought she saw peace settle over him. Then she realized it wasn't peace. It was surrender. Outside, journalists crowded the hospital gate, desperate for headlines. Inside, Amara wrote quietly in his chart, unaware that the man she just saved would soon change the course of her life forever. Because in healing his body, she was about to awaken his soul. The days that followed the storm wrapped Hillcrest Memorial Hospital in a hush that felt sacred. The tabloids outside screamed headlines about the billionaire's survival, but within the glass walls of the ICU, silence ruled. Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko had survived the gunshot, but something deeper inside him seemed broken, something no surgeon could mend. His gaze was heavy with memory, and when he spoke, it was only to ask for one thing. No one else, only Nurse Amara. The matron protested. Sir, she's a junior nurse. You need a full medical team. Damian's voice, though weak, carried authority. I've had a lifetime of teams. I need truth. So Amara stayed. Each morning she entered his room, quietly, clipboard in one hand, prayer in her heart. She washed his hands, changed his dressings, adjusted his oxygen mask. She spoke little, her calm presence filling the sterile air with peace. He began to wait for that peace, the way the dying wait for dawn. One afternoon, sunlight spilled through the blinds like gold dust. Damian lay staring at the ceiling. His voice was hoarse, but thoughtful. Do you know what it's like to live surrounded by people, yet feel completely alone? Amara paused. I think everyone feels alone sometimes, sir. He gave a small, hollow laugh. Not like this. My loneliness is bought with success. When you grow rich, people stop looking at your eyes. They look at your hands to see what they can take. Amara didn't answer. She checked his pulse instead, calm and steady. Her silence was not emptiness, it was listening. You're not like them, he said softly. Who, sir? The ones who smile, but sharpen knives behind their backs. Amara smiled faintly. I don't have a knife, sir, only a stethoscope. For the first time since his injury, Damian chuckled a sound so fragile it almost broke her heart, but his eyes dimmed again, clouded by years of regret. I've built empires, he whispered, but I destroyed friendships along the way. I lost peace. They call me a great man, but greatness means nothing when you can't sleep at night. Amara's gaze softened. Do you believe in second chances, sir? He turned to her, weary yet searching. Do you? Yes, she said quietly. God gives them to us every morning. That's why the sun rises. For a long moment they said nothing, just listened to the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Then Damian whispered, "Then maybe you were sent to give me mine." Amara lowered her eyes, her voice barely above a breath. "I'm just your nurse." "No," he replied, "you're something else." And in that room of silence, where the machines hummed and the world outside chased noise, a broken man began to heal, not through medicine, but through mercy. The rain had long stopped, but inside Hillcrest Memorial Hospital, the air still carried the scent of thunder, that quiet tension that comes after a storm, but before peace. Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko had begun to regain his strength, yet his eyes carried a heaviness that no medicine could lift. It was the weight of memory. Amara noticed it, the way he would stare at the ceiling when he thought she wasn't looking, or the way his hand sometimes trembled when the world went silent. She had seen pain before, but his was different. It wasn't the pain of the body. It was the ache of a soul haunted by the past. That afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the blinds, Damian called softly, "Nurse Amara." She stepped closer. "Yes, sir?" He hesitated, then pointed weakly towards the foot of his bed. "Underneath, there's a black leather bag. Bring it." Amara bent down and pulled out the bag. It was old, edges cracked, the leather smoothened by time and travel. Inside lay a brown envelope, thick with papers, an old photograph, and a small silver key. Damian's voice trembled. "That woman in the photo." Amara looked closely. It was a young woman, radiant, kind-eyed, holding a baby wrapped in blue cloth. "Her name was Veronica Nena Ama," he said quietly. "The only woman I ever truly loved." Amara blinked, startled. "What happened to her?" He smiled sadly. "Pride happened. My family said she wasn't good enough, too simple, too poor. I listened. I walked away while she was carrying my child." He turned his face toward the window, his voice breaking. "I built an empire out of guilt. Every brick was a piece of her heart I stole." Amara's eyes softened. "Did you ever see her again?" "No. By the time I went back, she was gone. I searched, but pride travels faster than repentance." He pointed to the key. "That opens the house where I left her, the Blue Lantern Cottage, in Nkuba Village. The caretaker's name is Oho Ekanem. He'll tell you what I couldn't face." Amara's hand trembled as she held the key. "Sir, why me?" "Because you have no interest in my name or my wealth. You care with clean hands, and only clean hands can touch the past without breaking it." She felt the gravity of his words sink into her chest. For a long moment, neither spoke. The monitor beeped softly, a metronome counting truth. Outside rain began again, gentle this time as though heaven itself was listening. Damian looked at her, his eyes glistening. "If I don't make it, promise me you'll find her. Or my daughter, if she still lives. Tell her I never stopped thinking of her." Amara swallowed hard, the key clutched tightly in her palm. "I promise," she whispered. And as thunder rolled faintly in the distance, she knew that promise would soon lead her far from Hillcrest into a world of secrets, redemption, and the love story time tried to bury. The morning after the confession, Hillcrest Memorial Hospital glowed beneath a soft, deceptive calm. The rain had cleared, leaving behind skies so blue they seemed to mock the heaviness in Amara's heart. She had spent the night turning the silver key over in her palm, wondering what kind of truth it would unlock and what it might cost her. When she entered Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko's room, she found him awake, propped up on pillows, his expression distant. "You didn't sleep," she said gently. He smiled faintly. "How could I? I've spent 30 years sleeping beside lies." Before she could respond, the door burst open. A tall man in a tailored gray suit strode in, his confidence sharp enough to cut glass. His resemblance to Damian was undeniable, except for the coldness in his eyes. "Father," he said, voice clipped, "we need to talk." Amara stepped aside instinctively. "Not now, Dennis," Damian said, his tone flat. Dennis ignored him, glancing at Amara with disdain. "Who is this? Another nurse playing angel?" "She's not another nurse," Damian replied quietly. "She's the only one I trust." Dennis laughed dryly. "Trust? You've lost your mind. While you waste time with strangers, your empire is collapsing. The lawyers say you're delaying your will." Amara's fingers tightened around the chart she held. Damian's gaze darkened. "Dennis," he said slowly, "you came because you smell money, not because you care." Dennis's voice rose. "I came because your indecision is ruining us." Damian's reply was almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of thunder. "You were ruined long before the money, my son." The silence that followed felt like a wound. Then calmly, Damian turned to Amara. "Do you see now why I'm not afraid of dying? I've already watched everything I love decay." Dennis scoffed. "When you die, don't expect me to clean up your mess." "When I die," Damian said evenly, "you'll realize you were one of them, the people who look at hands, not hearts." Dennis froze for a moment, his jaw tight. Then he turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Amara exhaled shakily. "Sir, maybe that wasn't the time." "It was the only time," Damian murmured. He looked up at her, his eyes clouded but resolute. "I won't rest until truth is free. Promise me again, go to Nkuba. Find Veronica, or my daughter. Tell them I never stopped remembering." Amara swallowed hard, the key glinting in her hand like a burden of destiny. "I promise," she whispered once more. Damian's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then you'll carry the part of my soul I can't save myself." As she stepped out into the corridor, the whispers of nurses followed her, fragments of gossip, envy, and disbelief. But Amara barely heard them. The promise pulsed in her mind like a heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the glass towers of Lekora, a forgotten woman and her child waited for truth. And Amara knew she was the one chosen to find them, not by chance, but by divine design. The journey of redemption had begun. Before dawn, Lekora City was veiled in mist skyscrapers, softened by fog, car horns distant like fading dreams. Inside her small flat behind Hillcrest Memorial Hospital, Amara Nkem Okoye folded her uniform neatly into a drawer. For years, her routine had been sacred service, silence, and prayer. But this morning, everything had changed. On the table before her lay three things: the silver key, the photograph of a young woman holding a baby, and a small envelope of cash Damian had pressed into her hand. "For transport," he'd said weakly, "and for truth." Her heart trembled as she whispered, "God, if this is madness, let it be mercy." She sent a brief message to Matron Gladys Bako, family emergency, 2 days off. Then she wrapped her scarf around her head and stepped out into the cool morning. The city, still wet from the night's rain, shimmered under streetlights. By the time she reached Zuba Park, the chaos had begun. Conductors shouting destinations, buses groaning under the weight of passengers, women frying puff-puff under red umbrellas. It was life in motion, loud, unpolished, real. "Madam! Nkuba Village! Last Cedo!" a conductor called. Amara climbed into the old bus, her bag clutched tightly. The seats were torn, the windows cracked. But she welcomed the discomfort. The bus jolted forward, coughing black smoke as it left the glitter of Lekora behind. Through the window, she watched the city shrink, glass towers replaced by red earth and palm trees swaying under the sun. Children ran barefoot after the bus, their laughter rising like music. With every mile, Amara felt her heart split between fear and faith. In her lap, the photograph of Veronica Ama rested like a relic. What if she's gone, Amara thought. What if I'm too late? But then she remembered Damian's trembling words. Tell her I never stopped thinking of her. Hours later, the bus rattled to a stop beside a dusty sign that read Nkuba Village, Home of Peace. Amara stepped down, her hospital shoes sinking into red soil. The air smelled of palm oil and rain. Following Damian's note, she walked past a well and turned toward a small green bungalow shaded by a mango tree. When she knocked, the door creaked open. An elderly man with a gray beard and tired eyes appeared, Oho Ekanem. His gaze fell on the photo in her hand. "You said, look, Damian Cole-Nwoko?" he asked, his voice unsteady. Amara nodded. "He sent me. He's very ill. He said you'd remember." For a long moment, Oho just stared at her, shock, sorrow, and something like forgiveness flickering across his face. Then quietly he said, "Come in, Nurse Amara. You've come for ghosts." Her heart raced as she stepped inside the dim room that smelled of dust and history. On the wall hung an old calendar and a photograph of Veronica smiling, radiant, alive. Oho turned toward her, his eyes heavy. "If you came from that man, then you've come to uncover the story he buried." Outside, a bird called faintly, and the mango leaves rustled like whispers of truth, waiting to be told. Amara tightened her grip on the silver key. She had crossed from duty into destiny, and she knew now the secret she carried would not only change the dying billionaire's fate, but her own. The road from Oho Ekanem's bungalow to the old Blue Lantern cottage wound through tall elephant grass, its earth the color of dried blood. The sun hung low, painting Nkuba Village in shades of amber and sorrow. Every step Amara took stirred the scent of wet earth and something deeper memory. Oho walked slowly ahead, his limp steady, a small ring of keys jingling in his hand. "He told me to keep it clean," he murmured. "Even when he never came back. Every month, money came, but never peace." Amara listened quietly, her fingers brushing the silver key in her pocket. "You worked here long?" "Since before the sin was committed," Oho replied softly. "This house was never just walls. It was a wound." They reached a rusted blue gate, half hidden beneath overgrown vines. Faded paint peeled from the wooden boards, and above it, a single lantern hung, its glass cracked, but still intact. "The Blue Lantern cottage," Oho said, "where it all began and ended." He turned the key and pushed the gate open. The hinges groaned like old bones. Amara stepped into silence. The cottage was small but proud, colonial-style windows, ivy crawling up the walls, and a veranda shaded by palm leaves. Dust motes swirled in the golden light like ghosts come to greet her. Inside, everything was preserved: a sewing machine by the window, a vase of dried flowers, furniture draped in white sheets. On the wall hung a crooked framed photograph of a young woman. Veronica Nkenna Ama, the same woman from Damian's photo. Her eyes seemed alive, filled with a knowing tenderness that pierced Amara's heart. She was beautiful, Amara whispered. Oho nodded. Beautiful, but stronger than beauty. She waited for him. Months that turned into years. Then one day she stopped waiting. He walked to a wooden cabinet and opened it carefully. Inside lay stacks of letters, some unopened, some burned at the corners. These came from Lekora, he said. His messengers brought them year after year. She returned every one. Amara touched one envelope gently, feeling its brittle edges. And the child? Oho turned toward her, eyes soft. The child lived, a daughter smart, kind, fierce like her mother. Her name is Vanessa Nena Ama. Amara gasped softly. She's alive? Alive, Oho confirmed, and still here in Nkuba. Runs a small health center near the old church, treats children for free, never married, never left. She doesn't know who her father was. Her mother never spoke his name again. Amara's throat tightened. She turned toward Veronica's photograph, the eyes that forgave a sin time couldn't erase. He wanted to make it right, she whispered. Oho's voice softened. Then maybe heaven sent you, so truth could travel the road love once lost. Outside, the wind rustled through the palm leaves. Amara stepped onto the veranda, staring at the cracked lantern swaying gently. Somewhere beyond the trees, children's laughter echoed, innocent, bright, untouched by history. She knew the next step would not just reveal the truth, it would decide what to do with it. And as the first evening light touched the cottage walls, Amara felt it, the pull of destiny that began with the dying man's whisper and now beat inside her own heart. The ghosts were no longer silent. They were waiting to be freed. Evening descended over Nkuba Village, turning the sky to bruised gold. The air around the Blue Lantern cottage had grown still, that sacred quiet that arrives before truth is spoken. Inside, the last rays of sunlight slanted through lace curtains, touching every corner like a slow blessing. Amara Nkem Okoye sat beside the window, staring at the photograph of Veronica Ama and her baby. The woman's smile, soft, certain, unbroken by time, seemed to whisper of both love and loss. Across from her, Oho Ekanem sipped palm wine from tin cup, his eyes far away. She was a light, he said at last, even when the world forgot her. Amara turned to him quietly. What happened to her, Oho? He exhaled slowly. Life happened, then death, as gentle as her spirit. She died 2 years ago. Cancer. Never complained, never cursed, just faded quietly like a song ending mid-verse. Amara felt her throat tighten. She rose slowly, following Oho outside. Behind the cottage, the earth was soft with moss, and a single mango tree stood in bloom. Beneath it, a small gravestone leaned slightly to one side. The inscription was simple. Veronica Nkenna Ama, 1971-2023. She loved, she waited, she forgave. Amara's eyes filled. She knelt by the grave, fingertips brushing the cool stone. He wanted to make it right, she whispered, but time was faster than his repentance. The wind stirred the mango leaves gently, as though heaven itself sighed. Oho bowed his head. Maybe forgiveness doesn't wait for time, child. Maybe it's what keeps time from breaking us. For a long moment, Amara said nothing. She just prayed for the woman who had loved beyond reason, for the man who had finally learned to regret, and for the daughter caught in the silence between them. When she rose, her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes glowed with quiet determination. Where can I find Vanessa? she asked. Oho pointed down the dirt path. Follow the road past the church. You'll hear the laughter of children before you see her. She built a small health center there, named it Palmview Street Clinic. They say she treats the sick for free. It's her mother's heart still beating. Amara smiled faintly through her tears. Like her father, a heart for others. Oho shook his head sadly. No, my dear. Like her mother, a heart for those who forget themselves. The words struck deep. As the sun dipped fully below the horizon, the lantern hanging by the cottage door flickered as if it remembered its purpose. Amara glanced back once more at the grave, then at the cottage that had held love, sorrow, and silence for too long. She whispered softly, "Rest now, Ma. I'll find her. I'll carry your truth." And with the silver key still in her pocket and the promise still heavy in her soul, she began the walk toward the church road, where laughter and healing waited, unaware that destiny was on its way. Behind her, the Blue Lantern cottage stood glowing faintly in the dusk, not with electricity, but with forgiveness finally set free. Morning broke over Nkuba Village with the soft hum of life returning, roosters crowing, children laughing in the distance, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The air was rich with the scent of dew and charcoal smoke, and for Amara Nkem Okoye, each breath felt like a prayer answered in motion. Following Oho's directions, she walked along the red earth path past the old church. Its bell hung rusted but proud, tolling faintly in the wind. A few meters beyond stood a simple building with a hand-painted sign that read, Palmview Street Clinic, for the children for the forgotten. The sound of laughter drifted out from the courtyard children with patched clothes and wide smiles waiting in line, their chatter warm and alive. And there, moving among them with effortless grace, was Vanessa Nena Ama. Amara froze. She didn't need an introduction. The resemblance was unmistakable. The same gentle eyes as Veronica's. The same soft voice that soothed instead of commanded. Dressed in a simple cream dress, stethoscope around her neck, Vanessa knelt to treat a boy's scraped knee, smiling through the dust. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "A little," the boy said bravely. "Good. That means you're stronger than it," she teased, tying the bandage. The child giggled. Amara watched, her heart aching with a strange mixture of awe and sorrow. Here was the woman whose existence had been hidden beneath decades of pride and silence, a living reflection of the love that once broke and forgave. When Vanessa finally noticed her, she stood, wiping her hands on her apron. "Good morning, you're new here," she said warmly. Amara smiled gently. "Yes, I came to see the one who heals souls, not just wounds." Vanessa laughed softly. "Then you've come to the wrong place. I'm just a nurse." The words pierced Amara's chest. Just a nurse. She remembered saying those exact words to Chief Damian when he told her she was sent to bring him a second chance. Amara looked at her closely, her voice tender. "Your mother would be proud of you." Vanessa's smile faltered slightly. "You knew my mother?" Amara hesitated, her throat tightening. "Not as well as I wish I had, but I carry something of hers." She reached into her bag and withdrew the photograph, the one of Veronica holding her baby wrapped in blue cloth. Vanessa's hand trembled as she took it. Her eyes filled instantly with tears. "I thought all her photos were gone," she whispered. "Where did you find this?" "From someone who never stopped remembering her," Amara said softly. "Someone who wanted you to know the truth about her. About him, about love that was buried but never died." Vanessa stared at her, confusion and emotion swirling in her gaze. "Who are you?" Amara's eyes glistened. A messenger, from a man seeking forgiveness, and a woman who already gave it. For a long time, Vanessa said nothing. The breeze carried the smell of mango leaves and rain. Then she looked down at the photograph again, tracing her mother's face with trembling fingers. "Sometimes," she murmured, "we spend our lives healing others, never realizing we're the ones meant to be healed." Amara nodded, her own tears silent, and sometimes healing begins when truth finally arrives. The two women stood there, one born of forgiveness, the other sent by grace, the threads of two generations meeting in a single breath of destiny. As the church bell tolled again in the distance, Amara knew her journey had found its purpose. And somewhere far away, in a hospital room washed by morning light, Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko stirred, perhaps sensing that redemption had finally found its way home. Weeks later, Lekora City glimmered beneath a pale sunrise, its skyline of glass towers and silver cranes still reaching for heaven, still restless. But inside Hillcrest Memorial Hospital, in the quiet VIP ward where fate had begun its slow redemption, there was peace at last. Chief Damian Cole-Nwoko sat by the window, thin but alive, wrapped in a soft gray blanket. The scent of disinfectant hung faintly in the air, but he hardly noticed it. His gaze drifted over the hospital gardens below, the same view he once watched through arrogance, now through awe. The door creaked softly. Amara Nkem Okoye entered, her presence as calm as the morning light. She set a small parcel on the table beside him, an envelope, and a photograph framed in wood. "She's alive," she said quietly. Damian's hands trembled as he reached for it. His eyes fell on the photo, Vanessa, smiling under a mango tree with children clinging to her sides, sunlight woven through her hair. In that instant, all the years he had wasted, all the pride that had poisoned his heart, seemed to collapse beneath the weight of grace. He wept not loudly, but deeply, the way only a man who has been forgiven can. Amara sat beside him, saying nothing. She had learned that some silences heal louder than words. When he could finally speak, his voice was raw. Did she know who I am?" Amara nodded gently. "She knows everything now." He swallowed hard. "And she forgave you before she even knew your name." Damian pressed the photo to his chest. "Then I can die in peace." "No," Amara said softly, her eyes glistening. "You can live in it." Outside, rain began again. Soft, cleansing, rhythmic. A few days later, Vanessa Nena Ama arrived in Lekora. She walked into Hillcrest quietly, dressed simply, carrying no bitterness. When she entered her father's room, the world seemed to hold its breath. Their eyes met hers steady, his filled with oceans. "I thought I'd forgotten how to pray," Damian whispered. "You never stopped," she replied, taking his trembling hand. "You just stopped believing anyone heard you." He broke down again, but this time the tears were not of sorrow, they were of release. For a long moment, father and daughter sat together, time folding upon itself, grief turning into grace. Amara, standing by the door, felt her chest tighten with quiet joy. The circle had closed. Love, long buried beneath pride, had resurrected in the most unexpected of ways. Weeks later, Damian Cole-Nwoko would donate a large sum to expand the Palm View Street Clinic in Nkuba Village, naming it the Veronica Foundation for Mercy and Healing. And in every room of that clinic, a blue lantern would hang, symbol of truth, found and love restored. As for Amara, she returned to her post at Hillcrest, unchanged in duty, but forever transformed in spirit. When her colleagues teased her again for being too good, she would only smile. Kindness, she'd say, is never wasted. It always finds its way home. That night, as she left the hospital, she looked up to see the first stars blooming over Lekora, and for the first time she noticed the reflection of the hospital's lights, shimmering on the wet ground like lanterns scattered across the earth. She whispered to herself, "The light always returns." And somewhere beyond that glowing skyline, in a cottage once buried by time, the blue lantern flickered once more. No longer a symbol of loss, but of love that had finally come home.